Welcome, dear viewers, to this pre-taped interview and the first interview of Handelsdagarna Web TV 2019. And I'm sitting here with none other than the president of the Stockholm School of Economics, Lars Strannegård. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Many students here at the school, they've heard your story, but for the viewers maybe at home, somewhere else, and for the new students, could you tell me a little about how do you go from just being, like, for me, a guy from Gothenburg to being the president of the Stockholm School of Economics?
You mean how I went from Gothenburg to Stockholm?
Well,
I took the train.
But what's your story, basically?
I'm kidding. Well, I had my background is quite diverse, actually. I went to, I think it's something like 9 different schools. Mm-hmm. So my parents were traveling quite a lot. They are medical doctors.
Right.
So I went from one place to the next, and I realized that I went 5 years to high school. So it's almost like 2 years in each class, which
right.
is sort of semi-good, I'd say. But so I've been living in quite a few countries, and then I went to boarding school. And then back to Gothenburg.
Right.
So it's sort of like back and forth, being in Sweden and also in other countries. But I've been changing lots of educational institutions throughout my life.
Right.
And then I couldn't really decide what to do. So I started to do research. And then research made me basically continue in the academic life, mm-hmm. but just continuing in research wasn't all that fun. So then I decided to do other things as well. And then all of a sudden, I'm here.
Right. And so I, for one, I'm very interested in your cultural engagement, and not just at the school, but I know in society at large, you're quite involved. So could you tell us, like, the story behind your cultural engagement?
Well, I think that culture and cultural institutions, that's of utmost importance to society at large, but also to education. So I think, of course, I have always been interested in cultural expressions of different kinds. So I've been doing things like starting up this art venue
right.
in Gothenburg. I've been on the boards of several cultural institutions, the Swedish Arts Council,
right.
the Film Institute, mm-hmm. lots of different cultural institutions. And I just think that trying to understand how the cultural world actually works is something that can infuse the work here at the school
sure. Right.
in a great way.
So would you say that you have, like, a cultural niche? Like, are you into contemporary art, or are you more like studying classics, or how do you engage in culture?
Well, in different ways. I mean, I follow the contemporary art scene
right.
quite a bit. I of course go to different kinds of performances. I read quite a lot. I used to be on the jury of the August Prize
really?
For non-fiction. Yeah. So that made me read a whole lot. So it's just a way of actually being sort of engaged in society and trying to understand what goes on.
Sure. And you talked about non-fiction, but what about fiction? Do you read a lot of fiction? I
read a lot of fiction too. Not to the extent that I would like to, because it obviously takes some time.
Sure.
But I do try to read quite a bit.
And
I also have a book club, actually,
really?
Or a book circle with a couple of old friends.
That's great. What do you read?
Gosh, I read anything that the book circle or book club recommends. So now we're actually reading a book by some of the individuals in the Swedish Academy.
Mm-hmm. So do you read a lot of Swedish novelists?
No, actually, all different countries.
Right,
for sure.
Right, and so speaking of culture, and I know you're trying to push culture more into the school, like integrating it into the school. How would you say that it's progressed? Like, do you feel there's a lot of, like, good feedback from, I don't know, faculty or students?
I absolutely think so. I think it's, in a way, there are several different layers in this, and you can really approach it in very many different ways. But one thing is basically, what's the more fun? This place with art and strange things going on, or this place without it? And to me, that's quite, a simple answer.
Sure.
I think it's fun to have these strange things that happen all over.
Yeah.
I like having, artist talks and authors talks and things like that. It just makes this place much more vibrant. So in a way, that's one sort of very simple and simplistic answer to that. But on another note, I think it's tremendously important because I think that, first of all, this school is absolutely amazing. The students here are amazing too. They are ultra smart. They're also ultra dedicated to what they're doing.
Sure.
And they're goal-oriented too. So I think if we introduce art and cultural expressions, it's actually a way of creating some kind of itching powder to make people here think.
Right.
Why is this strange thing here? Why is there, a full-scaled living room here?
Right.
Why are you showing these bizarre video works in the atrium? All these things, actually, the entire idea of it is to make you think yet another time.
Right.
And the fact is that so many of these artworks are also sponsored by companies.
All right.
And the question is, why do these companies sponsor these things? Why did we get a new sort of post-colonial video artwork that's sponsored by Boston Consulting Group? Well, because they're interested in students who actually are able to grasp with that, who are able to describe what they see, what they feel, why they feel what they feel, and be able to describe these cultural expressions and put them in another context.
Sure.
And the thing is that I also believe that digitalization, machine learning, and artificial intelligence, all that actually leads to that machines will very shortly outperform us all cognitively. But the ability to be human and view the world from a more sort of human perspective, to develop your empathy, to develop your creativity, to develop your reflective skills, that's something that the computers and the machines will have a very tough time at beating us in.
Right. Right. And I
So
find
it's sort
this,
of that's why this is a complete pedagogical idea.
right. And I find it very interesting, and I feel that it makes sense. So how do you work like on a day-to-day basis with this?
Well, we have one organization that's called the SSE Art Initiative, and that sort of runs its own show in a way. And what we do is that first of all, we gather a collection. So if you walk around this building, you're going to see more and more artworks.
Right.
It's just becoming more and more. We also have this collaboration with different galleries, with Moderna Museet, with LMNO in Switzerland, etc. And thereby we have lots of interesting video works on the big screen, and some of them are, of course, some of the students consider them, or some of the faculty members as well, find them a bit disturbing. But that's one way. So we have the video works, we have the temporary exhibitions, we have the collection growing, we have seminars of different kinds, and we have artists and art thinkers who come here for talks.
Right. And so you basically answered this question already, but if students here feel like I want to engage more in the culture here at the school or anywhere, what would you say to them? Like, how would you want them to go about like engaging in culture?
I would tell them to either join SAS's art division.
Right.
I would go to all the activities that are arranged by SSE Art Initiative. I would also be involved in the literary agenda, which is the fiction reading part, where it's possible to be part of where you actually get a certificate after reading a couple of novels and writing a reflective paper and going to different authors' talks. So I think it's just basically a way of opening up and trying to see what's on the agenda.
Right. Right. And to switch topic completely, how frequent would you say is your contact with the Students' Association, SSE?
It's very frequent.
Right.
Absolutely. To the board, I speak a lot to them, especially, of course, the SSE president, and also, of course, the educational UU.
Right. And have you gotten to know the new board
A
here?
little bit, yeah.
Right.
Well, they're stepping in March.
Sure.
So,
Sure. But like
but
how?
they were already at my house for Lucia.
Really?
Well, yeah, sure. Waking me up and my family, singing semi-nicely.
So last year when you were here, you talked about you got like inspiration from universities such as Stanford and other places, and their liberal arts programs. Will we ever see like a liberal arts program here at the Stockholm School of Economics?
I don't think so, actually, but I do think that our bachelor programs and our master programs will be infused much more by liberal artsy ways of thinking.
Right.
So we need to broaden ourselves. For these reasons that I said, when you come out, you have to be able to contextualize and open up yourselves to much more, to a broader understanding of the world.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I do believe that we shall always, I mean, a student that is, graduating, bachelor or masters from here, will have to be extremely good, at economics, at finance, and at business administration. That's
Right.
our core. So we have to be extremely good at that. But that's not really enough. You have to have all these other, features
Right,
as
yeah.
well too. So it's not ever going to be a liberal arts college in any way.
Right.
Always going to stick to the core, but much more infused with a broader way of viewing the world.
And digging even deeper into this, how would it be possible to integrate this more into the curriculum itself, not just like the school environment, but into the curriculum?
Well, I think it's global challenges is one way where we do that, and we're actually the same goes for the retail management program, where we're working a lot now with the tutorial programs. That's one way of introducing all that. But generally, I think it's the most important part is that the students themselves need to understand the importance of really broadening the view of the world.
Right.
Again, tremendously smart, tremendously goal-oriented, but really taking the opportunity of opening up. And if you do that, when you get out into work life, you're going to be tremendously more attractive to the employers who are
Sure.
going to be here.
Yeah. And this is a very hypothetical question, but would there be sort of a point where this like cultural infusion would steal too much attention from like the core?
I wouldn't be worried about that. I mean, if you speak to our professors, they are really good at filling up the curriculum.
Right.
And I'd say we shall never leave this. We should be even better at our core subjects.
Sure.
This is really the core of the school. It's the Stockholm School of Economics. It's economics, finance, business administration.
right.
You're going to be even better at that in the future. So
Sure.
I mean, it's sort of the number one sort of educational mission is really that you should have facts-based and a science-based mindset. And you don't get that through all these other sort of things that are around the core. But we have to focus on the core. Again, finance, economics, and business administration.
Right.
Without it, we sort of lose the soul of this place.
So currently there's this shift towards making the school like more internationally known and competitive. We've seen some of the master's programs rise in their rankings, which obviously is a great achievement. So firstly, could you elaborate on what the plan is on like a larger timescale for positioning the school internationally?
Well, I mean, the goal is obviously it's a small place. But again, I think it's a fantastic place. And I do think it's absolutely possible to be a really shining star in the world of business schools.
Right.
And it's absolutely doable. We're recruiting much more internationally. The professors that come in are extremely good. And also the professors that we have are now increasingly sort of working in the same direction. They are super good, and the research orientation is also becoming better and better by the year. So I think this is all sort of a good spiral working. And then the quality of the students is always really good.
Right.
And when we're now internationalizing that, that's going to spread too. So I do think it's possible that this place will be even more well known in the future.
Right.
Different ways of doing that. I do not think it's a good idea to completely sort of outsource our strategy to Financial Times rankings, because we have to stick to what we think is important ourselves and not let them, a commercial media company, sort of dictate what it is that we're doing. But when we increase on the ranks, it makes this place even better. And I say this all the time, that I see my role to increase the value of a diploma from SSE. So the better you are, the better the fellow students here now are, the better that's going to be for the brand as a whole. Even though you've had your degree, several years ago. So the better our students become, the more interesting stuff they do, the better the school is going to do.
Right. And so lastly, I would like to discuss the brilliant piece that you wrote in a Swedish newspaper recently. You talked about some of the things that we touched upon earlier, about the role of sort of Swedish universities and the cultural sphere. Could you sort of build on that point? Like, what will the role of higher education be in the future? And you call it an identity crisis. Could you explain what you mean by that?
Well, very briefly, higher education and universities do have some kind of identity crisis, I'd say, because as digitalization spreads across the world, it's now possible to get a degree basically from any high-profiled institution in the world through massive open online courses, for instance. So you can get a degree from an Ivy League university, but then basically, what is it that a university does? What kind of value is it that it adds?
Right.
Well, obviously, you're all here. I'm here. You're not sitting in your living room doing your degree at home. But what is it that a university can actually do in terms of adding value to the student?
Right.
And when you start thinking about that, it sort of lands in that this place should be a place where we teach you things that you cannot Google.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So
sort of
because
going
the rest
beyond the
Google.
textbook, really.
Right. So if you're able to do that, that means that it's a way of approaching the world. It's a mindset. It's much more of a scientific mindset, a fact-based mindset, a reflective mind, entrepreneurial mindset, creativity, analytical, all these things. That's what you actually learn here. So that means that universities in the future really have to sort of develop their students' ability to be human somehow, because being human is something that the machines will never be better at than us.
Right. And I'm gonna give you a chance to brag here a little bit. What are we doing here that is right, that others are not doing? Like, what is SSE doing that's really pushing this?
Well, I think lots of things. First of all, I think that again, this place never gets better than the quality of the students that are admitted.
Right.
I think what we need to do is to actually broaden our admissions even more, so we get an increased diversity. So we're on the way of doing that, and the more diverse it gets, the more exciting this place actually becomes, because you increase the level of discussions, basically, and the perspectives. We are super good at research. We're good at recruiting, but we're also good at retaining, I'd say, some of our faculty members. We have some excellent people who actually decide to stay while they have offers from all these other places.
Right.
So we're doing a good job when it comes to that. And then I also think that the sort of the community that this place builds, it's really a magic place. Magical, because the type of affinity that's built here through the students do it. And the interaction with the faculty really creates that. And if you're able to really sort of develop that great sense of community, I think there are basically no limits for how great this place can be.
Right. And I was going to touch on that, like what can we learn? What is there left to do to position ourselves for greatness in the future?
Well, I think it's basically trying to internationalize even more. For instance, internationalizing the bachelor program in business and economics.
Right.
So in order to make this place even more diverse and thereby even more exciting, I think that's really the key. And then continuing to raise funds. Of course, it's a private place, so we always have to work with funding, and thereby sort of making donors and different stakeholders
Right.
be even more interested in us. So and this all comes together. More talent attracts more funding, positions us in a better way. And if we do this on an international level, again, I think the future looks very bright.
Right. And on that note, I want to thank you so much for coming here.
Thank you so
This
much.
has been Lars Strannegård, our headmaster, and that was all for this interview. And we'll see you later today. Thank you.
Great.